Abandoned 3-week-old puppy eating food on the street, I adopted him. It was just an ordinary afternoon, the kind where nothing big is supposed to happen. The sky was overcast but not gloomy, and the air carried that familiar warmth of early spring, soft and full of quiet promise. I had no plans, no rush, and no expectations. I was simply walking through the neighborhood, listening to the gentle rustle of leaves as the wind passed through the trees lining the sidewalks. That's when I saw him. A tiny puppy, no bigger than a loaf of bread, darted out from behind a trash bin. He was scruffy and thin, with fur that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in days, if ever. His legs were short and wobbly, but they moved fast, determined. The moment he saw me, his little eyes lit up with a mix of fear and hope, and he ran straight toward me, as if I were the only thing in the world he recognized. He didn't bark. He didn't whimper. He just ran fast as those stubby legs could carry him, and when he finally reached me, he stopped, panting, and sat at my feet. I knelt down, unsure of what to expect. Would he run away? Would he bite? But he didn't move. He just looked up at me with eyes so wide and vulnerable, I felt my heart twist a little. Without a second thought, I extended my hand. "Hey there, little guy," I said softly. "Where did you come from?" He tilted his head slightly, ears perked up. I noticed how skinny he was, his ribs slightly visible through the matted fur. His paws were dirty, and his little nose was dry and cracked. But despite it all, he didn't seem afraid of me. In fact, he inched closer and pressed his body against my leg, as if asking for comfort. I carefully reached out and scooped him up. He was lighter than I expected, far too light. His small body was trembling, not from fear, but from weakness. I wrapped him gently in my jacket, creating a makeshift blanket, and held him close to my chest. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're safe now." I didn't hesitate. I turned around and headed straight home, where I grabbed a soft blanket, wrapped him tightly, and carried him to the nearest veterinary clinic. On the way there, he didn't make a sound. He just curled up in the blanket and rested his tiny head on my arm. Every so often, he would let out a soft sigh, like he was finally letting go of a fear he'd been holding onto for far too long. The vet's office was quiet, and they took us in right away when they saw the condition he was in. The doctor, a kind middle-aged woman with gentle eyes, looked at him with concern. "He's severely underweight," she said after the initial examination. "He's dehydrated, and he's got a few minor scrapes, but nothing too serious. We'll give him fluids and medicine to help with his stomach." I stood there, holding the blanket close, nodding. I couldn't take my eyes off him. "He's lucky you found him," she added. "Or maybe he found you." After a series of checks, she gave him some medicine and handed me a few small packets of food for him. I took him outside to a quiet corner and gently offered him water. He sniffed at it cautiously before taking a few tentative sips. Then, as if realizing it was safe, he began to drink more eagerly. I offered him some soft food next. He devoured it. Watching him eat broke something inside me. The way he lunged at the food, the way he looked up after every few bites, as if making sure it was okay to keep eating. He must have been starving for days. When he finished, I took a damp cloth and began wiping his face gently. The dirt came off slowly, revealing patches of soft fur beneath. He didn't resist. In fact, he leaned into the touch, eyes half closed, like it was the first time he had felt gentle hands in his life. "You're coming home with me," I told him. "From now on, you're not alone." The walk home was quiet. He nestled into the crook of my arm, his little paws resting lightly against my chest. At some point, I realized he had fallen asleep. There was something incredibly peaceful about it. His tiny breaths, the slight twitch of his ears, the way he instinctively clung to me even in sleep. It was like he knew he was safe now, back home. I set up a small space for him in the living room, a soft towel, a clean bowl of water, and a few toys I had left over from a neighbor's dog. I gently placed him down, but he immediately tried to crawl back into my lap. I laughed and picked him up again. "All right, you can stay here for now." Before anything else, he needed a bath. His fur was tangled and dirty, and I wasn't sure what I might find. I filled a small basin with warm water and slowly lowered him in. To my surprise, he didn't struggle. He just looked up at me with calm eyes and let me wash him. I scrubbed gently, running my fingers through his fur to remove the grime. The water turned brown, then murky gray, and finally clear again. When I lifted him out, I wrapped him in a fluffy towel and dried him off. His fur was softer than I expected, a warm brown with streaks of white on his chest and paws. He looked like a completely different puppy. Clean, full warm, and for the first time, safe. Once dry, he curled up beside me and fell asleep again. I watched him, marveling at how quickly he had made himself at home. It was as if he had been waiting his whole life for someone to tell him, "You belong." 2 hours later, he stirred. I heard a small yawn, then the sound of tiny paws padding softly across the floor. He found his way back to me, tail wagging slowly. I picked him up, offered more food, and this time, he ate more slowly, with a bit more confidence. The vet had told me he needed to gain weight, so I made sure to feed him small portions throughout the day. After he ate, he licked my fingers and snuggled into my lap, resting his chin on my arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. The days that followed felt like the beginning of something new, not just for the little puppy, but for me, too. I decided to name him Toby, a simple name, soft and easy to say. The kind of name that might suit a small, timid pup trying to find his place in the world. Sometimes, when the world felt overwhelming or stress piled up, I'd simply look at Toby. His happy, trusting face was a reminder that even the smallest things, like saving one little life, could bring immense joy and purpose.